Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Every watch tells the time. The best watches tell something more, a story about where they came from, what they were built for, who imagined them into existence, and why any of that should matter to the person wearing them. Today's list is built entirely around that idea. We have a watch born from one of cinema's greatest science fiction films, a chronograph that carries the soul of motorsport in its every detail. A tourbillon that puts Swiss haute horlogerie within reach of a real human budget. A Cartier that distills 2 centuries of Parisian jewelry craft into a single perfect circle. And at number 1, a watch that will genuinely surprise you. Because the most interesting story on this list does not belong to the most expensive entry. Let's get into it. Number 10. Hamilton Murph. The Hamilton Murph is the watch that Christopher Nolan put at the center of one of cinema's most ambitious science fiction narratives. And the fact that it exists as a real, purchasable object worn by real people is itself part of what makes it so compelling. In Interstellar, the watch serves as the physical object through which time, love, and the fifth dimension communicate across impossible distance. And Hamilton's design team worked directly with Nolan's production to create something that felt genuinely credible as a piece of mid-century American watchmaking. The result draws from Hamilton's own rich archive. The brand has supplied watches to film productions and the United States military for decades, with a clean, open-faced design that carries a warmth and familiarity that feels like it has always existed. The automatic movement inside provides reliable, everyday performance, and the case proportions sit beautifully on the wrist in a way that makes it genuinely wearable rather than merely collectible. For watch enthusiasts and film lovers in equal measure, the Murph is the rare movie tie-in that works because Hamilton had the integrity to make it worthy of the story it came from. The Hamilton Murph retails for approximately $795 to $945 USD depending on configuration. Number 9. Bulova Moonwatch. The Bulova Moonwatch carries one of the most quietly extraordinary pieces of space history you can strap to your wrist, and most people have never heard of it, which makes it all the more remarkable. While Omega's Speedmaster has rightly become the legendary timepiece of the Apollo program, Bulova's own watches flew on multiple NASA missions and were personally worn by astronauts, including Dave Scott, who wore a Bulova chronograph on his wrist during the Apollo 15 moonwalk after his Omega developed a crystal issue. That watch recently sold at auction for over $1.6 million. The modern Bulova Moonwatch reissue honors that heritage with period-faithful design cues, the precisionist high-frequency movement delivering exceptional accuracy, and a presentation that balances vintage authenticity with everyday wearability. The warmly aged lume tones, the period-correct case geometry, and the sense that you are wearing something connected to the greatest adventure in human history all combine to make this one of the most emotionally resonant watches at its price point. History at this level rarely costs this little. The Bulova Moonwatch retails for approximately $550 to $700 USD depending on reference. Number 8. TAG Heuer. Heuer 02T. The TAG Heuer 02T is a watch that should not exist at its price, and the fact that it does represents one of the most compelling value disruptions in contemporary watchmaking. A tourbillon is watchmaking's most celebrated complication, a rotating cage that counters the effect of gravity on the balance wheel, first patented by Abraham Louis Breguet in 1801, and for most of its history, confined to watches costing 6 figures and above. The Heuer 02T places a genuine functioning tourbillon, not a decorative imitation, not a display complication, but a Swiss lever tourbillon beating at the heart of TAG Heuer's own movement, in a watch that retails for under $4,000. The movement is developed in-house by TAG Heuer using vertical integration across their manufacture in La Chaux-de-Fonds, and the tourbillon cage is visible through the skeletonized dial in a way that turns every glance at your wrist into a moment of mechanical theater. The case design draws from TAG Heuer's motorsport heritage with a sporty, angular confidence that wears far more casually than the word tourbillon might suggest. This is the watch that makes collectors do a double-take when they see the price. The TAG Heuer 02T retails for approximately $3,650 USD. Number 7. Bulgari Octo. The Bulgari Octo arrived and immediately made everything around it look slightly uncertain of itself, because the Octo knew exactly what it was from the first moment, and that clarity of vision in a sports watch design is rarer than it sounds. Where the Octo Finissimo pursues the ultimate in thinness, the standard Octo line wears its geometry with a more muscular confidence. the 8-sided bezel layered over a round case, creating an architectural depth that plays dramatically with light across its multiple polished and brushed surfaces. The design references Bulgari's heritage of geometric jewelry design, the Parentesi collection, the B01, while translating that vocabulary into something entirely appropriate for a mechanical sport watch. Roman numerals on the dial nod to the brand's Italian identity, and the overall effect is of a watch designed in Rome rather than the Valet de Joux, which is precisely the point. Available across a range of calibers including skeletonized and GMT variants, and in materials spanning steel to titanium to gold, the Octo rewards exploration across the collection. This is Italian design confidence applied to Swiss watchmaking, and the result belongs to neither tradition entirely. The Bulgari Octo retails for approximately $6,500 and $10,000 USD depending on reference. Number 6. Maurice Lacroix. Aikon. The Maurice Lacroix Aikon is the integrated bracelet sports watch that quietly positioned itself as one of the finest value propositions in the entire category, and the collector community that discovered it early has been recommending it to everyone who asks for an honest answer ever since. At a time when certain integrated bracelet sports watches from more famous addresses carry waiting lists measured in years and gray market premiums that border on absurd, the Aikon simply sits on the shelf, available to anyone who wants one, delivering case finishing and bracelet articulation that genuinely competes with references costing 3 and 4 times as much. The case geometry is clean and modern without trying to evoke any particular famous predecessor, which gives the Aikon an identity of its own rather than the faint whiff of imitation that some competitors carry. Available in steel, titanium, and ceramic variants, with automatic and quartz movements as well as a full chronograph, the Aikon family has enough depth for serious collectors to explore. The brushed and polished surfaces across the case and bracelet are executed with a consistency that the price does not prepare you for. For the buyer who wants the integrated sports watch experience without the theater that surrounds it elsewhere, the Aikon is the honest answer. The Maurice Lacroix Aikon retails for approximately $1,200 to $2,500 USD, depending on reference. Number 5. Panerai Submersible. The Panerai Submersible is what happens when Panerai takes its storied Italian Navy heritage and pushes every technical parameter to its operational limit. And the result is a watch that wears its purpose as visibly and unapologetically as any timepiece made. While the Luminor and Radiomir lines carry Panerai's archival elegance, the Submersible is built for the water in a way that shapes every design decision from the case architecture outward. Water resistance figures across the Submersible family range from 300 to 1,000 meters, depending on reference. The unidirectional bezel is engineered for the physical demands of real diving operations, and the crown-protecting lever bridge that defines all Panerai watches is here serving its original purpose, rather than functioning as heritage decoration. The bold case dimensions, 42 mm to 47 mm across the collection, wear with the physical confidence of equipment rather than jewelry. In-house caliber options, including the PMA 900 with its 72-hour power reserve, demonstrate Panerai's increasing technical ambition, while titanium case options keep the weight manageable for a watch this substantial. The Submersible is Panerai with its intentions completely clear. The Panerai Submersible retails for approximately $8,900 $16,000 USD depending on reference. Number 4. Rolex Milgauss. The Rolex Milgauss is the quietest iconoclast in one of watchmaking's most famous catalogs, a watch born from a genuinely unusual brief that produced one of the most distinctive references Rolex has ever made. Developed in 1956 in collaboration with CERN, the European nuclear research facility outside Geneva, where physicists work in environments of intense electromagnetic interference, the Milgauss was engineered to resist magnetic fields of up to 1,000 Gauss, hence the name. The solution was an internal soft iron Faraday cage encasing the movement, invisible from outside but protecting the caliber from the fields that would stop conventional watches entirely. The lightning bolt seconds hand and the distinctive case profile gave the Milgauss a character unlike any other Rolex, and the Z-green crystal version, casting its distinctive green tint across the dial, elevated it from specialist tool to genuine collector obsession. Discontinued in 2023, pre-owned examples are already appreciating with the momentum that follows any discontinued Rolex reference. Wearing a Milgauss is wearing the watch that CERN's physicists trusted, which is perhaps the most unusual endorsement in the entire Crown catalog. The Rolex Milgauss is available pre-owned for approximately $12,000 $16,000 USD. Number 3. Cartier Ronde, Louis. The Cartier Ronde, Louis Cartier is a watch that arrives from a completely different tradition than everything else on this list, and that difference is the entire point. Cartier is not a watch brand that happens to make jewelry. It is a Parisian maison with over 175 years of jewelry heritage that applies that heritage to watchmaking with a confidence and historical depth that no dedicated watch manufacturer can replicate. The Ronde Louis is the purest expression of that philosophy. A perfectly circular case in white or rose gold, a silver dial with Roman numerals in the unmistakable Cartier style, a blued steel sword-shaped hands arrangement that has graced Cartier dials since the early 20th century, and a finishing standard that reflects a house that has been setting gemstones and polishing precious metals for kings, maharajas, and heads of state for generations. The in-house 1847 MC caliber beats reliably within, but technical specification is almost beside the point here. The Ronde Louis Cartier is worn for what it represents: 2 centuries of Parisian elegance distilled into an object small enough to sit on your wrist. There is nothing in watchmaking quite like it. The Cartier Ronde Louis Cartier retails for approximately $6,350 to $9,500 USD depending on material. Number 2. Chopard Mille Miglia. The Chopard Mille Miglia carries one of motorsport's most romantic stories on its dial, and the partnership between Chopard and the Mille Miglia road race that produced it is one of the most genuine and enduring collaborations between a watch brand and a sporting event in the industry's history. The Mille Miglia, 1,000 miles across Italy's most spectacular roads, originally run between 1927 and 1957, was the race that defined an era of open-road motorsport, and Chopard became its official timekeeper in 1988, beginning a relationship that has produced some of the most evocative limited edition watches of the modern era. The Mille Miglia watch family draws design inspiration directly from the dashboards, gauges, and visual language of the racing cars that competed on those Italian roads. The tachymeter scales, the racing dial layouts, the color palettes drawn from period competition liveries. The chronograph variants are the heart of the collection, and the quality of case finishing and movement specification reflects Chopard's status as a genuine manufacturer. Wearing a Mille Miglia is wearing something that smells faintly of petrol, leather, and Italian summer roads, and there are very few watches that transport you somewhere quite so vividly. The Chopard Mille Miglia retails for approximately $4,500 to $8,500 USD, depending on reference. Number 1. Fossil Hybrid HR Collider. The Fossil Hybrid HR Collider takes the top spot on today's list, and if that surprises you, that surprise is precisely why it belongs here. In a conversation dominated by mechanical movements, precious metals, and century-old manufactures, the Collider does something that none of those watches can do. It asks a genuinely new question about what a watch is for in the 21st century and answers it with more intelligence and honesty than almost anything in its price bracket. The hybrid HR format is the idea that deserves attention. Real analog hands on a real watch face driven by a movement that communicates notifications, heart rate, activity tracking, and smart features through subtle hand movements and a small always-on display, without a touchscreen, without daily charging, and without the self-conscious tech product aesthetic that makes most smartwatches unwearable with anything other than athletic gear. The Collider's case looks like a watch. It wears like a watch. It lasts 2 weeks on a single charge, and it quietly handles the connectivity functions that modern life increasingly demands without announcing itself as a gadget. At its price, it represents a more thoughtful answer to the question of what your wrist tool should do in 2024 than products costing 10 times as much. Sometimes the most interesting story is the one nobody expected to be telling. The Fossil Hybrid HR Collider retails for approximately $195 to $255 USD.